This gorgeous mulberry tree has been with us 6 or 7 years. My husband did some pruning and pinning to try and keep the branches aimed down low when it was younger, and they just grow so strong and so fast. After a while he couldn't help but let it just go on growing how it wants to. Let me show you something up close on it. See these aluminum foil balls in the tree? They're not a nest of some new kind of invasive species. Every year now my husband's been doing air layering on these trees, where you slice a bit of the branch and you wrap it with a plastic bag with compost, and then you wrap that with foil, and the branch will root inside the bag, and in about 6 weeks he can cut the whole branch off with the new roots that have grown into that bag and make a new tree. So we've made lots of babies that we've given to friends and family, and we'll be making more. Here are the mulberry plants starting to grow, and they will ripen around June if I remember correctly. But we get tons of fruit off here for at least 4 weeks, sometimes 6. And they're just delicious. This is an Illinois mulberry if I remember correctly. And the kids love to climb this tree. It is in the willow family, so don't plant it anywhere where you don't want the roots to grow really strongly through, like a septic field. It is the last Friday in May. Everyone in our home has had a dry, scratchy throat and congestion and just low energy the last 4 days. So it's nice that everyone's feeling better now, and we're all up and doing stuff, getting ready for Sabbath and the weekend. Now, because I was busy being nursemaid to everybody all week, I didn't get out in the garden to do anything this week other than harvest strawberries 3 different mornings and harvest some spinach and collards. Otherwise, I haven't been out here. I piddled a little bit one evening, pulling some weed, just walking around and looking, but that's it. So, as nature does, everything's been growing on its own. And you can come for my pleasure and yours and take a look and see what it's looking like in May. So we can do the roundabout way again. This is wall bed number 1. These are potatoes that were planted at the end of February. They are already flowering. Getting all big. I haven't looked down in here. Nothing's poking up yet. Potatoes aren't really getting big enough to do that kind of thing yet anyway. And I do not have these potatoes on trellis or any kind of support. Whoop! You see that lizard? I probably didn't catch him. Alright, wall bed 2 is all red potatoes. None of those are on support. The ones at the very end here have a trellis support to hold them up. Look, these are even getting a little bit of flowers starting on them. Wall bed 3, lettuce and collards. Number 4 is spinach. And I had kale in here before, and I must not have ripped it out good enough at the roots because there's some kale coming up between the spinach. And 5 has lettuce and carrots going to seed. So carrots are biennials. I started these carrots last fall. Maybe last spring. Yeah, these were from spring 2022. And I just left them in the wall. What I didn't pull out for eating, because I knew I wanted to collect more seeds. Let's see, this one's getting a seed head. It's working its way up to seeds. And there's lettuce and beets coming up next to them. Right. Here's wall bed 6. I've got calendula and snapdragons. Number 7 is empty. I'm going to be putting Roma tomatoes in here in the next week. And I didn't rip the rest of the giant winter spinach out. We're just letting it go to seed also, just to have a variety of spinach seeds. This is wall bed number 8 with spinach and carrots. The carrots came up really thin on this side. Those were the store-bought ones. The carrots on this side were carrots that I'd saved seeds from the previous year. And they germinated much better. So if you want to see up that wall. Wall bed number 9 has the June-bearing strawberries, which I have not picked today. I'll get to before the day's over. He's ready. Number 10, potatoes. And I haven't walked around to show all these yet. It's a messy area. But these are our original raised beds from a couple years ago, and they have strawberries, June-bearing strawberries, and I tucked in onions where some of the transplants didn't take last year, and they are all very happy. Wall bed 11 is Yukon Gold potatoes. Wall bed 12 is Kennebecs and Pontiac red potatoes. And these are all trellised or supported all the way down with this fencing to help keep the plants upright and the ground and potatoes underneath shaded. I'm walking through the weedy asparagus bed. Oh, see that lizard? Kale's still going to seed. So when the flowers from the kale plant finish, they grow these little pods on them, and then they'll swell up with seeds. And when they start to dry out, I can harvest the seeds from this kale. I have no other brassicas that are going to seed right now, so this should not get cross-pollinated with any other brassica varieties. I should get a pure kale seed. Bed 14 is still empty. I did have plans to put squash in these beds, and I really don't know if I want to go through the heartache of squash this year, at least not summer squash. I hate squash bugs, and they just really depressed me last year. I don't know if I want to deal with them this year. If I wait till summer, usually the squash bug pressure is lessened. So we'll see about that. Bed 15 was emptied and refilled. Some of the plantain that was in here before didn't get pulled all the way, so it's growing out through the compost. I'm going to rip that out. 16 is empty, but ready for peppers. And 17, this long stretch, has Bloomsdale long-standing spinach going to seed at the front end. This is what your spinach plant looks like. It's going to seed. Gets little pods all the way down the sides of the stem. And when I'm finished collecting seeds from that, whatever's left will go to the chickens. And this is where I've got some ever-bearing strawberries with spinach tucked inside. And then wall bed 18 is the final one with chamomile. I have been picking some flower heads off that. I probably got 20 heads off, maybe Sunday or Monday, so I'll go ahead and pick a few more off. But if you get a chance to smell fresh chamomile flowers, they smell like the sweetest apple blossoms. Let me test it for you. They smell like sweet candy. Love chamomile. Alright, we're going to go in the garden. And I really haven't done anything in here all week. I haven't cut the grass or weed eated, so it might be a little tall. So, labeling these again, beds 1 through 8. I did put some cages up to estimate where I'm going to have tomatoes. And I put a few little plants in between towards the end of last week. Basil, calendula. I think in bed 7 there's parsley. There's some lettuce in bed 8. But otherwise I haven't put anything else in these beds other than onions. So, bed 4. I did not rip the roots out of this Brussels sprout from last year, and he thinks he's going to grow. So I might let him. I don't know. If it interferes with the tomatoes, I might pull him out. Onions, more onions. And the parsley is looking happy, ready to put tomatoes in. It is finally May. I think last night was our final night in the 40s. So I'm going to put a few tomatoes in today and probably more on Monday. Do you see our little lizard friend? All right, in ground bed 9, I have 2 dahlias at the end where these bamboo sticks are. I've put watermelon on the edges and some sunflowers in the middle. I see the sunflowers have started popping up. We had a lot of nice rain this week. Now, down at this end, I did Yukon gold potatoes, and I started corn in the rows between the potatoes and see how they did. And when the corn first came up, I had only planted them 6 inches apart, and almost all of them germinated. So I transplanted some of the corn further down here away from these potatoes. And in the last week, the potatoes have grown so fast that they've outgrown the corn plants. So I'm thinking if I'm going to want to get any corn from those plants, I'm going to have to transplant more of them elsewhere. Peas are growing nicely, going to flower. Let's see if you can spot some of the corn in here. So there's a corn down there in the shade of the potato plants. There's another one hiding down there. Of course, the corn that's on the outside edges over here is getting a little more light. But now we know how that experiment works out. The potatoes get bigger than the corn really fast. And ground bed number 10 has our onions, the spots saved for peppers, with the cages, and our English peas. Ground bed 11 has our garlic, which was planted last fall. I think we had at least 3 different types of garlic in here. And this will get pulled sometime in June. And the dahlias that I planted at the end are starting to pop up. 12 has onions and broccoli. Whether or not I get the broccoli or the cauliflower further up will depend on how the weather stays during May and into June. We usually get too warm here. And when you see those white moths flying around, those are your arch nemesis. I just saw one go by. Those are cabbage moths, and they lay the little eggs for their babies, which love to eat brassicas. And you don't fight those much in the fall. You fight them more in the spring. Yukon gold potatoes in bed 13. And what I've realized here now also is I was going to plant beans on these trellises, and I'm betting that these potatoes will also shade out anything that I want to grow in the middle of them. I'll put some in today and see if they can make it up high enough to start getting sunlight, but I'm not too sure. But these potatoes are looking smaller than the ones further down anyway. And bed 14 has cauliflower and onions and a few weeds. And the strawberry towers are starting to give us our ever-bearing strawberries. That's where we're at in the garden. Let me show you some of our peach and pear trees also. These are little Asian pears that have started growing. We had a bunch of delicious pears off of this tree last year. You probably can't see that. Sorry for the lighting. Next to it we have a peach tree. And we'll be thinning the peaches off of this pretty soon. This tree is at a low point on our property towards the bottom of a hill. And this is the first year we've had any significant amount of peaches on here, because usually what happens is it puts off really, really pretty flowers, and then we get a late frost and everything is killed. And it was really warm this spring and they put off gorgeous flowers, and this frost we had didn't kill it. So I don't know how old this tree is. 6 years old at least, 7, 8. I don't know. We should have cut it down 2 years ago because we never get fruit from it. And this year it is loaded. Peach City around here. Back here we have our big berry patch. We've got about 16 blueberry bushes and blackberries, and we just put in some grapevines. We did have very large blackberry vines here for a few years, and we did not maintain the branches and keep cutting off the old stuff, and so they died back a lot. So we're having to restart them again. My little lettuce seedlings are coming up. I have these in the shaded side of the house, so they'll keep growing during the summer. We have little baby apples in the Liberty tree. It'll be nice to get to try those this year. And in the front side of the house, we've got 2 more peach trees that have produced for us for several years now, and they are more heavily pruned. At least the branches are. We really thought the last frost we had was gonna knock stuff out, but oh my. Can you see all the peaches on there? We have so much to thin. We can't let peaches grow so thickly that they'll touch each other as they get bigger, because they just rot anywhere the peach touches another peach. So like those 2 are too close together, and you just take it off like that. And we'll just collect buckets full of the ones that we're gonna thin off and then throw them to the chicken pen. Let them rot in there. Oh my, we have so many. Look at that. Looks like I will be canning peaches again this year. So many. I have so many to take off. It's already the middle of the afternoon now, and I know I'm not going to get a chance to plant anything today, so it'll have to wait a couple more days, and then we'll get our tomato plants in the ground.